for the Pima County Health Department COVID-19 Schools Liaison Team. To begin the meeting today, we're actually going to have a brief update from one of our logistics team members. You'll all recognize Krista, and she'll go over a brief update before we jump into the agenda.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Just a quick update. We have reached out. We're going to be providing PPE to the schools. If you do not hear from us, feel free to email eoclogistics@pima.gov. So we have a list of charter private guys. Oh, sorry, I didn't know. I'm used to practicing in rooms where we don't have better technology, so I apologize for that, yelling at you guys. But that being said, we're going to be providing face masks, gloves, face shields, hand sanitizer, bleach. So it's actually really, really great. You will be contacted either via phone or email for pickup sometime this week. If you do not hear from us by Friday, feel free to email me at eoclogistics@pima.gov, and make sure in that email you tell me the name of your school, your name, your phone number, and your email. That way I can contact you back, okay? And with that being said, thank you for all you do, and any way we can support you, let me know, okay? Thank you very much, Brian.
Hold on 1 second, let me make sure I get everything. So I'll be sending out this updated agenda, everyone post the call. So you'll see there that PPE will be provided. Contact EOC Logistics if you don't hear by Friday. And make sure you include the name of your school, your name, and email address. Anything else on there?
If you can, give me your student count and your staff count.
Okay, great. So good news for all of you. Giving you stuff besides headaches.
Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome. Okay, so let's jump into the rest of the agenda here. Thanks again for joining us. I know last time we didn't really get a chance to review the data dashboard in a lot of detail. So I do want to do that today. And I'm going to show you all how to navigate there and find that again, just because I want to make sure that this is easy and accessible for everyone here. Okay. So if you go to the Google here and type in Pima County, and you'll get this webcms.gov email address here. You're going to click that link. Once you get here, there's two ways to go there. One is to go directly to data and statistics, but I think most of you have this page already saved, your school's page. Right? There we go. Everyone should have this saved on their favorites button. As you scroll down here, just a reminder, the meetings and recordings over here, that is continually being updated. Most of your school's resources will be located on this. Right here under COVID-19 data and reports, you'll find Pima County Data Dashboard. Under this data dashboard, this is our GIS, Graphic Informational Systems display for some pretty good data relevant information. You'll get to this place, and remember, we're looking at this by school district primarily, because this will be, I think, pretty helpful for everyone to get to that place. You can also do it by jurisdiction, but it'll give you a GIS map of your location right here in the middle. Okay, so this is where you're going to find your school crossroads or whatever it is, and look at the district that you're affiliated with. Again, you can do this by jurisdiction, census tract, or zip code. Within this, you're going to have a couple of different breakdowns of data, but the one that I'm going to point out today is cumulative cases. We're just going to do a rapid overview of this because I did try to talk about this earlier, and I know I didn't get to do a screen share. You can do this cumulatively or by date. I prefer the by date because it gives you a breakdown of where you see certain peaks occurring throughout the COVID incident, and you can start to see different wave patterns as well. Okay. Someone else started sharing. Hold on a second, let me fix that. There we go. So should be back onto this screen here. And is that what you're seeing? Let me just double check, make sure you're getting that. Yes. Okay. So with the top here, there's this slide tracker, and this is the cool part of this tool. I can take this and adjust it over so that I'm just looking at the dates of September and October. I'm looking at where these cases are kind of falling. Keep in mind that it does take about 2 weeks for all of our test results to really log into the system, because all this data gets plotted through ADHS before it populates all of these different areas. So that's why you see some lower cases here on October 16th, 17th, and 18th. These will jump up in a couple of days. For example, October 13th on Friday looked more like this, down to this level. So this is probably a more accurate reflection of what you're seeing overall on an aggregate level for the number of positive cases by the school district jurisdictions. This is all school districts. You can pull down up here and scroll down to one specific school district. So if you reside in Amphi, for example, you can click that and it'll change the demographic information just to reflect that specific school district. If you want to also go down and play with the jurisdiction or the zip code itself, do the same thing down here. If this is maybe a little bit more helpful for you, in terms of how that data gets visualized. These are all really good tools to use. I think the one thing that this will be really helpful for is if you remember that tool I shared with you last week, the one about the calculator, the percentage calculator of percentage of transmission. That's where you're going to find things like by this cases by age group, by using zip codes specific to your area. Right, so if I'm in 85737, for example, there we go. Then I can see when I use that calculator, I can do the 20 to 44 or the 0 to 19. That'll give you some specific data for entering those fields into that calculator we showed last week. Okay, so there's a bunch of other applications with this tool. We are planning on setting up a session to go into far more detail of this. That's up to you on how you want to check it out. From an epidemiological perspective, it makes a lot of sense to us to use this. And I think that from an informational school district with either governing boards or with constituents or clients or families that are at your school site, this is a good tool to communicate the urgency behind COVID-19, especially when we start to hit bubbles or when we start to see lulls, okay? It doesn't show the per 100,000, and we know that that can be problematic, but that's something that should be displayed in a different setup here. Oh, sorry. So one of the other things I want to show briefly, and I'm not going to go through the whole video, but I know a lot of folks here have asked for specific messages to parents about answering the phone and things of that nature. So this specific video addresses the importance of answering the call as well as some other mitigation factors. So Dr. Cullen starts off by going through a couple of things. This is where you see the wash, wear, and wait right here. Then a little bit later goes into the actual symptoms of COVID and outlines those. Then you'll see Superintendent Dustin Williams come on and talk a little bit about the importance of staying safe in schools for teachers and for students. And then at the end of this, ignore the horrible beard. I get into the importance of answering the phone for contact tracing. So once again, there's some other good things about close contact in here as well. We have some updates on this as well, fresh from the CDC last night. I had an update on that I'll share with you here briefly. But overall, it's kind of lengthy, but it's a good video to plug and play. This is in English and in Spanish too. So here's the Spanish version with Dr. Garcia. So both of these will be shared out in the notes as well as a link here, which I'll be posting here briefly. Okay. So just upcoming information for you all to be aware of. I'm going to stop share on that. Just a brief question for folks here too. It looks like some of you are having issues maybe getting booted off and then trying to get readmitted. I see there's a couple of folks that it looks like there's some admissions failing as well. You'll see Rebecca O'Brien just posted the links to the YouTube videos in the chat there. If you're having issues logging on or getting booted off, if you could just post that briefly in the chat, describing any, just let us know that you're getting booted off continually. That's information that I need to make sure I'm documenting and getting back to our IT team so we can alleviate some of these issues. All right, jumping back to the agenda. We skipped around a little bit. So we went from the data dashboard overview. You'll see the agenda pop up here shortly on the screen. Any second now. I promise it's there. Oh, this is frustrating. Let me try this one more time. Let's stop share again. Okay, I'm going to look for another way to get the, oh, there we go. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. So we skipped around a bit. We went to the data dashboard overview. I went into a little bit more detail on that. Again, we'll be hosting a webinar on that fairly soon, probably a recorded webinar so that we can walk folks through how to use it and what's going to be useful for you to schools to look at. And then from there, we jump straight down to the informational videos for parents in Spanish, the links of which were posted by Rebecca in the meeting chat as well, okay? I think we have the link to the dashboard overview in the chat. If not, we will post that in there again, just so folks have that, which is the, again, the data dashboard and that navigational tool. There's a couple of things that I know that have been emerging concerns, so we're actually gonna review some other documents, which the first is the organized youth activities. And then we're going to jump into some updated close contact definitions that we just got an update from CDC on, as well as a review of isolation and quarantine guidance with a specification on siblings, because I know this has come up a lot in questions. And we're actually reformatting some of our contact tracing today. So note that this is going to be updated in how we issue guidance to you all. Since I don't have it in writing at this point, I can't give you the specifics of that. I'm just going to give you some general where that direction is going to go for that. But we'll start out there, okay? So organized youth activities. We're going to jump over to the Arizona Department of Health Services website with some updated guidance that they just issued recently. So ADHS schools COVID page, and you'll see this pop up here in your screen share in a little bit. There's the main COVID-19 page for AZDHS, which at the top will say highlighted infectious disease for Arizona. I know this is having a little trouble loading, but it will pop up here in a moment. I'm going to try to navigate to this page simultaneously on the other computer that I'm using to see if we can expedite the share. Okay, yeah, we're gonna do this a different way. Okay, you should be able to see this here in a moment. There we go. Okay, So we're going to go to ADHS, data dashboard. Right here. Okay, so on this page, there's a couple of links we're going to pull up and look at really quick. The first one is, as this loads ever so slowly, no, that's not it. Sorry, let me go back and do another search here. Preparedness, epidemiology control, epidemic disease control, PHP. Just copy and pasting this over, PHP. Hashtag. Oh man, I'm having some issues with this today. Apologies. There we go. Okay. Thanks again for your patience. So right down here at the bottom, there's a tab that says Organized Youth Activities. This was just updated by ADHS yesterday. I'm going to try to zoom in on this a little bit more so you can see what we're looking at here for this guidance. So what ADHS is saying here is the following: when participating in organized youth activities, they recommend that attendees stay home if they are feeling sick or high risk for severe illness. When in attendance, individuals should remain at least 6 feet away from other participants and activity facilitators. In addition, activity organizers and coaches should take the following steps. Wear a mask when possible, provide coverings or masks to attendees, increase the availability of alcohol-based sanitizer and hand washing stations for adults and youth to use during the following activities. Operate with reduced occupancy to reduce congregations of large groups. Implement sanitation protocols, including sanitizing sports and activity equipment before and after each use. And then this is the last part right here, which I think is really critical. Encourage to work with both AIA and their local health department for athletics and competitive sports. The AIA return to activity guidelines developed independently and uses parameters different from what ADHS has adopted to define community spread. So there's been a lot of questions about that specific piece right there and the metric that AIA is using versus what ADHS and what Pima County is using to define minimal spread, minimal community spread. We're aligned with Arizona Department of Health Services and have been since the start of March with COVID, where we define 10 per 100,000 as minimal transmission. Okay, ADHS aligns with that. And again, we've had that in place since March. AIA actually began with that same benchmark to define minimal spread. And up until a certain point within the last month or two, they changed that guidance to 75 per 100K. If you look at 75 per 100K, that falls in the higher range for what we would consider moderate transmission. ADHS also considers that moderate transmission. Moderate transmission as a benchmark in terms of cases would be anywhere from 10 to 100 cases per 100,000 in the population. So clearly, again, on the higher end of what we would define moderate transmission. I'm highlighting this because these return to activity guidelines as a whole, we very much agree with how AIA wants to implement these return to activity guidelines, looking at moderate, minimal, and high risk activities. We differ a little bit on that definition. We just look at it as contact sports that being defined by any sport or activity where contact is necessary to obtain the goals of that game. So things like football, basketball, cheerleading in some capacity. If you're doing spirit line, that's different. Lacrosse, rugby, any wrestling, these are all things that you need to be engaged in contact with another individual in order to meet the goals of that game. And I'm saying all of this because we're setting up a meeting on Friday for the athletic directors to go over AIA guidance and to offer suggestions from the health department on how to proceed forward with athletic activities. We really feel strongly that youth need to be engaged socially right now more than ever. We very much support that statement. There are certain sports that we are not going to recommend. We can only recommend, that's all we can do. Your governing boards, your school board, your various other guiding groups will ultimately make that decision. We are in the process right now of trying to work on a strategy for football specifically that we can supply to schools to say, even though we do not recommend football at this point, here are the things that we strongly recommend you implement if you're just going to go ahead and proceed with that. So within that, like all of those guidelines pretty much align with what AIA is saying. We've been working a lot actually with and Mr. Tucker, not at this point, no, the only document you should be seeing should be the screen share of the ADHS highlighted infectious diseases. I can click this link to return to activity guidelines. In fact, I'm going to do that. So if you click that link on the website.
I don't want them sharing their screen because they can see this.
Yeah, this is the screen share.
Okay.
So this is the recommended guidelines for returning to activities. And thank you, Mr. Tucker, for pointing that out. You as well, Ms. Walker. Thank you. These are all the guidelines that we strongly support. Again, the big difference is the definition on what constitutes minimal spread. So when you get down here into this section down here, which talks about the stages, which I'll just pull this up instead. Here we go. Scenario 3, substantial community spread. We're not in substantial community spread right now. We feel that we are in moderate community spread, which is scenario 2. AIA's guidance is actually more stringent than what the health department is saying in terms of activities to be conducted. AIA is saying that in moderate community spread, that there's certain things that should not be happening. And that has to do specifically with contact sports. So let's go down and just take a look at what that means a little bit further down here. So they're saying that in moderate spreads, larger team sports and contact sports may consider non-contact team practice with cohorts at least 6 feet apart from other cohorts at practice. Outside practice is encouraged when possible. Athletes should be, so like all of these things here, they're even suggesting that with contact sports, you do not play outside of region. That's one of the things that they recommend. And some other pieces in here: daily screening, attending virtual training sessions. Like there's a lot of really stringent guidelines in terms of all of this right here. No competitions is highlighted in there as well, so that would include any football games. So that I just want to point this out because we've been working closely with AIA on all of this. Again, we disagree on what the benchmarks are, but we support what they've written in this document. Absolutely, I think that overall they've done a really good job of putting in strong layered mitigation. They also, on their website, have specific sports guidance as well, that we think is important to adhere to. Okay, so again, that's the reason why I'm pointing this out is because this guidance was just updated on the ADHS website just the other day. There is one other thing that that I want to point out with ADHS guidance. If we get back over to the agenda, which has to do with symptomatics, close contact, and with students. I think that our siblings specifically, we've been giving some incorrect information on this. So this is our first attempt at remediating this. The information that we've been giving in the past is that if someone is symptomatic with COVID-19, that the siblings do not need to quarantine as well. ADHS's guidance, and this was pointed out actually by an attendee on this call, that this guidance was incorrect from what the Pima County Health Department was providing to you all. So I want to make sure to remediate that. And it says, after doing a ton of digging, I found this document. It basically says that all household members of someone confirmed or suspected to have COVID-19 should not physically attend school and quarantine at home for 14 days. So the example that was really coming up around this was one was symptomatic with COVID. Our previous advice was that sibling should go home and seek testing as soon as possible. The other siblings at the school campus could continue to attend school, providing that they don't show symptoms. So our correction on that is that siblings, if they're at the same school, should also go home and seek to quarantine. Now, if student A, who is the one who was originally symptomatic, seeks testing or gets an alternate medical diagnosis from a medical professional, then everyone is then allowed to come out of quarantine, okay? And Naomi, I will link and post this right now. It's on the agenda that's going to get sent out to you all, but I'm going to go ahead and post it in the chat as well, okay? So this presents some pretty difficult complications for you all for a couple of reasons. One, because already quarantine guidance poses some challenges into retention and making sure that kids are in the classroom. I get that, it's complicated enough as it is. This adds another extra layer of pulling kids out of the classroom. We recognize that, and we're going to have to align with this guidance as a health department in terms of our recommendation. Again, we can only recommend. The schools will be doing that as much as possible. Question from Sister Veronica, receiving follow-up agendas, and we haven't done that in the past. I made some alterations to this agenda just before the meeting, so I'll be sending that out to everyone on this meeting list. And I think if you've received the invite to this meeting, you'll be on that email list. If you don't receive it by 5 o'clock today, for anyone on this call that doesn't receive the agenda, please email us at eoceducation@pima.gov, and we'll make sure to get you a copy of that agenda, okay? I am going to jump back over to the agenda here briefly, just to kind of detail where we're at, index where we're at. So you'll see this pop up on your screen here shortly. And I'm just going to do a review of where we're at with everything, okay? So we've gone over the logistics PPE distribution. We covered the data dashboard overview. We showed the organized youth activities and talked a little bit about the AIA meetings that have occurred thus far with the health department and with the state. I have a close contact redefinition that I'm going to share with you that we're working on getting into a graphic updated format that we'll share out with everyone. You get to be the first group that hears about that, so congratulations. We reviewed the isolation and quarantine guidance regarding siblings specifically, and we went over the information videos from parents on English and Spanish. Okay, so the updated guidance from the CDC regarding close contact, in the past, we've said 6 feet, less than 6 feet for 15 minutes or more, continuous. The update from the CDC from just last night from an email is that that definition is now cumulative over a 24-hour period, okay? So I'm gonna repeat that one more time. Cumulative over a 24-hour period. So now what we're seeing is that, and this gets more complicated. We're going to try to figure out how we can get this visually communicated in the easiest way possible. Is that from this morning till this evening, if you have been within 6 feet of an individual who is a confirmed positive case, let's say at 7 a.m. you were with them for 5 minutes, then at 10 a.m. you were with them for another 6 minutes. And then at 3 in the afternoon, you were within 6 feet for another additional 5 minutes. That now constitutes close contact under this definition. If you were 5 minutes on Monday, 5 minutes on Tuesday, or even 10 minutes on Monday and 5 minutes on Tuesday, that would not meet the definition of close contact. It's within a 24-hour period, okay? So 15 minutes or more for a cumulative period within 24 hours. Okay, we understand that that's yeah. So I'm gonna leave it at that. We'll pull up and create some new visual information that will help get that across. But again, this was guidance just issued from the CDC last night. I don't believe they even have it up on their website yet. We shared that out with ADHS today, so they'll be updating their definition as well fairly soon. But we'll probably be one of the first to have that graphically communicated. Question from Erica Huff. The data dashboard link on the agenda doesn't work for me. Am I doing something wrong? Is that not accessible yet? So Erica, if you're clicking the agenda on the shared screen, it's actually not going to do anything because that's just a screenshot of what you'll be seeing on my personal computer. So let me just quickly take that and copy and paste it into the chat box so that everyone's got that. Okay, that concludes everything on the agenda at this point. And you should see that dashboard link pop up there in the chat. Are there any questions or comments or concerns? I know this is frustrating, and sometimes there's some continually shifting things going on around COVID. It's been that way from the start. I think one of the things as a public health worker, and Megan, you've got your hand up. Yeah, go ahead, Megan.
Good morning. I just had a clarification question on the siblings. So I've gotten a few calls about kiddos at different schools. So siblings, so we'll say sibling A is at an elementary school, sibling B is at a high school. Sibling B was possibly exposed to someone who has COVID. They're quarantining for 14 days. What does that mean for sibling A at the elementary school? So they're asymptomatic and their sibling at the high school is not confirmed to have COVID, but he could have been exposed to someone who does have COVID?
Yeah, great question. So according to ADHS, the guidance on what they're saying with that is anyone who is suspected to have COVID, which would include an exposure. And I'll get clarification regarding that specific question today from ADHS. They may defer and flounder around for a bit. According to what we're reading and how the health department would interpret that, though, is if there's a suspected COVID exposure or anyone who's suspected to have COVID, that the siblings would also need to enter quarantine.
Okay, so suspected, I guess in my head, I thought suspected was kind of synonymous with symptomatic. So suspected is just symptomatic or a close contact, even though that the sibling was not exposed. It's the other sibling at a different school that was exposed.
Yeah, at this
Okay.
point, that's going to be our guidance and interpretation, but we are awaiting some clarification on that. So I'll actually raise that one specific scenario to our contacts at ADHS and see what feedback they have in regards to that. And then I'll email you directly, and then we'll share that out on the webinar section next week. Actually, Dexter, Rebecca, will you just make a note of that so we can make sure we do that? Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. And question from Dr. Derninger. And Dexter, I know we had discussed a little bit on the playground equipment. Do you want to unmute and provide any guidance on that research project you're working on?
Sure. I'm still hunting down some answers from the CDC because depending on the webpage you look at on the CDC website, it says different things. The one consistent thing they hear is that if it's playground equipment made from wood, that does not need to be cleaned. But there is some disagreement even within the CDC website about whether plastic and metal surfaces require just routine cleaning or if they require disinfection in addition to that. So I'm still hunting down that answer. I'm sorry that I couldn't get that to you this week, Dr. Derninger, but I'm gonna try and get something out to y'all next week. Still chasing it down.
Yeah, and I think that with the release that the CDC put out regarding airborne transmission recently, they did make a footnote that, and it looks like the emerging research is showing that surface transmission is significantly lower. So that will definitely be a factor in the playground equipment situation. What that means is essentially if I'm a COVID positive case and I'm touching this surface here, that the risk of transmission is significantly lower. If I have droplets from a cough or a sneeze that get onto the desk surface, like large droplets of spittle or extract, if you will, that would increase the risk of transmission if I was to touch it and then touch my face afterwards. So we'll continue to look that up and try to have some solid guidance for you in the next couple of sessions. You're welcome, Ms. Huff, for that. The one last additional thing, this also was not on the agenda, but we were recently brought to the attention of CLIA waivers, which that's going to be upcoming in the next series of webinars. It's has to do with the new Binax testing that's coming up. So if you've heard anything about that, know that that's coming up in the next week webinar. We're actually going to have the person from ADHS share out about that. I don't know if they'll be able to attend both sessions. We're currently in negotiations to try and get them to do that. Any information they share on one webinar, we'll be sure to replicate that on a future webinar as well. There's only 2 schools in all of the state, I believe, that have a CLIA waiver, which basically means that there's the ability for a school to run a lab on the premises. This is probably most pertinent for our high school partners on this call, specifically in strategies to get football teams to start playing again. So just know that that's going to be some upcoming guidance that we're currently learning about to try and get up to speed with being able to provide appropriate technical assistance in relation to that topic area. Okay. Any other questions or comments in the chat? Okay, so our team will stay on for another couple of minutes. At this point, we're going to officially conclude the webinar for today. I do know that there's been some questions about accessing the recordings on the website. Just know that those are continually being updated. There has been a lot of issues with recording some of these, so some of them have not been available, either my failure to record it or the ones that we've recorded have just been blank for whatever reason. So if they're not up on the website, it means that there was an error in recording those previous webinars. If you're looking for specific informational topics that were previously covered, just email us and we can accommodate that and get some other material out to you all that can help guide you in terms of the technical assistance. So just concluded recording right